welcome to another day at Grandmasters here. It is day number 2 of the playoffs this weekend, and we had a pretty weird and wild day yesterday, didn't we, Derek?
We did indeed. It was Staz going on a bit of a tear, to be perfectly honest, with his Hunter. 4-0 in games, 2-0 in series, qualifying very, very cleanly through to the semi-finals. And then a Mage Mirror as well, which kind of reason just went out the window. Yeah, that was just ridiculous at that point.
If you want to watch a very strange mirror, watch the last match from yesterday. It was very, very weird between Alutimu and Dawn. And a very brief update. Dawn did get knocked out. It's going to be Alutimu and Staz moving on to tomorrow, which is the final day of playoffs from Group A. But today we're going with Group B. But before we get into that, we can just talk about Grandmasters and what we are doing here. We've had many, many weeks of Grandmasters now, so it's been 3 regions across the board, and Derek, myself, and a few other people actually, casters-wise, have been covering this region over the course of many weeks, but we are at the playoffs stage now, so it's basically going to be one spot from each region is going to book their place in the global finals there in November, and then we do it all again for season 2 to equal 2 players from each region. 2 players, including China, of course, are going to put forward 2 players, and that is going to be your top 8 for the global finals, which is going to be pretty high. But we have like the rest of playoffs and a whole season to get through before that, Darren.
That is exactly right, and I don't know, it feels weird for me to be saying that playoffs is what it all led up to, because Grandmasters in itself has kind of felt like, you know, this is it. But then you remember they're qualifying for something even bigger. Yeah. Exactly, the whole of Grandmasters is just to get to the global finals. But the format that these players will be using in Grandmasters and in the Masters Tournament, the qualifiers this year, is a Specialist, our new format for this year. A single class format. You bring 1 class, 3 decks of that. 5 cards can be different between those 3 decks, and then you can switch them up in the best of 3.
Yeah, on week 100 of Grandmasters, we are not going to go too deep into the Specialist format, which I'm sure you guys are fully aware of. But let's go deep into the Group B here. We have Shaxi, who finished Division B at number 1, which means he got number 1 seed, which means he effectively starts this group stage at a 1-0 win. So where it says bye, just imagine he had some kind of opponent, but that's his benefit to finishing top of the group. He just gets a win, he moves on, so he's in winner's match. But then we have Surrender, who's actually traveling across from Division A.
That's
as
correct.
The 2 second places swapped places through the group. So we have Surrender versus Tyler in a match number 2, which is going to be the first match of the day, and then it will continue on through that bracket until we have 2 players left, and 1 player will go home. And that is our schedule for the day, Darren.
It is Surrender and Tyler. As you said, with Surrender traveling over from Division A, this is the first time these players will be matching up against each other. 2 absolute powerhouses of the Asia-Pacific region. However, despite Tyler only relatively recently transitioning over to the Asia-Pacific region, moving to Vietnam, he was the number 1 point earner for last year, which I'm sure some players like Rivius in particular will feel a little bit salty about, given that they were so close to getting that spot. But still, with Surrender having a very strong HCT performance a couple of years ago as well. This is, in my opinion, as good as it gets in Asia-Pacific.
and you know, same as yesterday, this is going to be the feature match. It's the only one we know, for sure. But it's going to be Rogue Mirror. But speaking about the players, I think these are potentially 2 of the biggest crowd favorites as well. Surrender, a very long and storied history in Hearthstone, not only for himself, but being teammates with, you know, very popular players like, you know, Sixo. You can look at Hoy back in the day as well. Like, you know, Surrender's just almost been here from the start. Probably the outside of Kranich, one of the first Korean players to really blow up in Hearthstone in terms of just how popularity is gained across the world, not only in Korea itself. And Tyler, just a lovable Hearthstone player I think everyone across the world loves, you know, from the Americas region all the way to Asia Pacific, even though he, you know, jumped away from Europe to, you know, maybe make a bit of an easier run of it in the Asia Pacific region previous year. I think he's gained a lot of respect from all regions in Hearthstone now.
Yeah, one of my personal all-time favorites in terms of players. I have watched a truly unconscionable amount of hours of him streaming Hearthstone over the years, which I hope to see him do very well and qualify through to that semi-finals. As we can see here, his opponent will either be Staz or Alutem, depending on where he finishes in the first seed or second seed.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is yesterday, Staz and Alutimu got through the group and Dawn got knocked out, which means today the same is going to happen, but for Group B, which means either Shaxi, Tyler, or Surrender will get knocked out today. The other 2 fill these 2 spots, but it means that they face opposite players again.
Yes.
So, as you said, one player, the seed 1, will face Alutimu on the right, and seed 2 will face Stars. And as the players getting ready to go right into it, I think, pretty quickly with Surrender versus Tyler. The winner will go on to play Shaxi. The loser will wait to play the loser of the winner going on to play Shaxi. Very simple.
That's right. Basically, for any of these players, Shaxi included, despite having got that win in the first round, lose 2 matches and they are out.
Yes.
It's pretty simple. As you can see there by Surrender's jersey though as well, you talk about teammates that he's had along the years. I mean, now with him being on T1, he's now teammates with Orange, Fino and Ball Control, with Fino already qualifying through to the semi-finals of Grandmasters, and Orange in with potential of doing so today as well.
Probably the #1 powerhouse team overall, I would say. Outside in terms of just number of players plus quality of players. When you combine those 2 things, I think it's pretty impressive.
I think in Grandmasters, Team Liquid probably takes the #1 spot at the moment, just because both of their competitors in Frozen and Dog have done so well, with Frozen already getting through to the semi-finals. But that is for the Americas to be worrying about later on in the day. Here in Asia Pacific, we are ready to jump into our first match, the Rogue Mirror, which we were missing yesterday. No Rogues yesterday, just 2 Mages and a Lone Hunter. So I'm glad we're going to see a little bit of the Rogue gameplay, because it's a real cornerstone of the current meta, and I think Surrender is at the top of the Rogue game.
Yeah, and these Rogue lists, I think, almost identical. There's like
super similar.
There's one Novice Engineer versus, what is the cut for that Novice?
Snip Snap?
Oh, Snip Snap. Yeah, one Novice Engineer for Snip Snap. So Surrender playing the Snip Snap, and then if we move over to Tyler's list, which is extremely similar, as I said, then he is playing the 2 Novice Engineers instead. So it's going to be very similar to the Mage matchup we had yesterday, in that it's an almost identical mirror match.
Yes.
So there is not a lot to go by. So Tyler and Surrender rocking pretty much the same lists.
Yeah, the only real difference in their lineups outside of the Snip Snap versus the Novice Engineer is in their anti-warrior sideboard, going in pretty different directions, which is quite cool to see. Surrender going with the Coppertail Imposter, double War Gear and Cairn Bloodtooth. I was talking to Orange on Twitter about exactly 1 or 2 War Gears. He was a fan of 1 War Gear, 1 Mojo Master Zihi, but I was still puzzled after his answer. I understood his reasoning of, you don't always want to go War Gear on the Coppertail.
Right.
Sometimes Mojo Master Zihi can be even better against the Warrior, just to deny their Omega Assemblies and Omega Devastators for a few more turns. But I still think it's a reasonable card to go for. And then Tyler on the other side, going with Togwaggle's Scheme, 2 copies of it to counteract the Warriors. Won't matter in this particular tournament, because in playoffs onwards there are no Warriors in Asia Pacific at all.
We did you a favor.
You're welcome.
But funnily enough though, although it might sound weird that you're talking about a side deck that just isn't going to be used, but with opponents of Tyler and Surrender, these 2 players specifically, and to be fair, even Shaxi, all 3 of these players have played a very significant amount of Warrior throughout Grandmasters. So it wouldn't have been a surprise to see any or even all of them potentially bring Warrior, but it hasn't ended up like that. So now we're going to go into game #1 between Surrender and Tyler. It's going to be an almost exact mirror match going on.
It is indeed. However, the tiebreaker, I suppose, or I think it shifts the weights in one player's favor, is often the coin in these matchups. It's far from, I would say it's not quite as crucial in the Mage Mirror in terms of how important it is to have the coin. But I think Surrender is definitely a slight advantage at the start, at least.
Yeah, I think it's more of a you play differently as opposed to you're going to lose. You know what I mean? You just have to alter play a lot of the time when you're not on the coin in the mirror in this mirror, but in the Mage you were significantly disadvantaged, I would say. So let's just get right into it. Surrender. There we go. So get the right music. Whew. That was too hype for too long.
Way too intense.
That was too hype for way too. Imagine the whole series. I need a break.
I didn't even realize that was so tense until it stopped.
Honestly, so we'll get into the game 100%, but a large amount of appreciation has to be said for this Hearthstone theme, because it is very easygoing and relaxing, as opposed to imagine if that was playing every game, all game.
Yeah, I'd be a wreck.
Yeah. Well, more so.
Yes, more of a wreck than I currently have with my broken arm.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Just a cable rant pretty early on for Tyler, just getting that